Happy Friday! It is May 7, Social Studies Learning Target today is I can understand the characteristics of the Mauryan Empire, which is India, and then also why did empires collapse? All right, your question of the day. Hopefully, you've had some time to think about it. It is a little bit trickier, it's a little more of a thinking question. And let's go over it for a second. Compare the collapse of the Han Dynasty and the Roman Empire. How are they similar and how are they different? Hopefully, you used your reading guide for this. We're going to go over the reading guide actually right now, and then we'll jump back to the question of the day based off what we go over. And then maybe some of you who struggle to answer this, once you get those answers, it'll be a little easier. So we'll go over this question of the day after we do the reading guide, but go ahead and give it your best effort. So go ahead and pause the video, do your best, and then we'll jump back. Okay, so you are on your lesson video right now. We're going to review your notes. I just want to go over, you have a test Tuesday, May 11. So please be prepared for that. We are not taking a quiz on China and India like we did for the last 3 empires. We are actually going to just add a few questions to your test concerning China and India. That way we don't have 2 assessments right in a row. Pretty repetitive, and who wants to do that anyway? So we're going to do our test next Tuesday. So make sure you study over the weekend and make sure you are prepared. You have a study guide that is posted in your Google Classroom, so use that. We have our reflection today, and then if you have time, there is a Kahoot that you can either play as a class, play with a partner, or maybe you want to just use this over the weekend to study. It is not an exact representation of the test. It just will get you a good idea of what type of questions could be on the test. Okay, so the Kahoot is not the exact replica of the test. There's going to be questions on the Kahoot that are not on the test. Okay, but it will help you study. So there is that posted there at the end, and then just reminder: make sure you turn in your question and reflection notebook at the end of social studies today. All right, let's go over the reading guide right now. So you have your vocab as usual. This first section is concerning India, and then the next section will be on why empires collapsed. Okay. Number 1, this was fill in the blank. So the Mauryan Empire was created in the wake of who? Alexander the Great's empire collapsing. The first leader was Chandragupta. The most famous leader was Ashoka. All right. And I know these names are tricky, so do your best. But it is important that you remember that Alexander the Great's empire collapsed. And that is how the empire, the Mauryan Empire, was really founded and created because Chandragupta then took over the areas that Alexander the Great kind of left behind in a mess. Number 2, why after conquering neighboring kingdoms did Ashoka never use force again? As many as 100,000 soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded. These losses really affected Ashoka. He felt bad about this, okay? He wasn't a tyrant, power hungry, and he instead saw this terrible loss as loss of life, and he really changed from that. Number 3, what religion did Ashoka convert to? Buddhism. Number 4, what was Ashoka's most important contribution to the Mauryan Empire? It was his conversion to and then the support of Buddhism. Number 5, Ashoka spread his religion not by conquest, but by sending religious envoys to places as far away as Egypt and Macedonia. So if India is here, Egypt's over here, right, in Africa. And then Macedonia so if Egypt's over here, Macedonia is up here. So it really spread it out much further than the borders of the Mauryan Empire. Number 6, Ashoka used stone pillars containing edicts to spread his message across the empire. What clues have those stone pillars given the historians? Okay, it tells historians who the Mauryans interacted with, how were they successful. It documents the Greeks that lived there and the fact that Mauryans traded with the Greeks. Number 7, what happened to the Mauryan Empire? Well, it collapsed and it shrank after the death of Ashoka and officially ended in 185 BCE. All right, so it ended before 0, okay? So remember, 0 is kind of when the Roman Empire took off and expanded quite a bit. If you look at your geohistogram, you can see that. So the Mauryan Empire ended a little bit before that, about 100, 200 years, okay? And similar to the Roman Empire, kind of ending after Marcus Aurelius, the Mauryan Empire ended after the death of Ashoka. Number 8, using interactive 4.7 World Geohistogram, answer the following question. You're adding all these civilizations here you can see on the screen that we've studied to the geohistogram, and then you're seeing how many overlap. So if you went to the 4.7, you were supposed to push all of these different civilizations here. So as you can see, I did Mesopotamia, right? Okay. Egypt, Indus, Greece, Persia, Mauryan, Rome, and China. And then they pop up here on the picture. And so you can see that they all overlap, not all of them. 6 of the 7 overlap right here, which is, if we put the timeline up, oh, isn't that so handy? Labels, look at that. West and East, awesome. So if we put that 0 line up right there, which defines where BC and then CE or AD happens, we can see that many of them overlap here. The Indus Valley region is the only one that's kind of on its own on here, but it still overlaps with other civilizations. So the answer to the question is all of them overlap with some other civilization, but there is 6 at one time. All right, so section 7. Here's your vocab, okay? And make sure you read through those. And let's start with number 1. Throughout this chapter, we have looked at the different ways empires were created. It's your first blank. Governed, expanded, and succeeded. So those are all supposed to be filled in, the blanks there. None of these empires lasted forever, and it is important to understand the ways in which they collapsed, okay? Make sure you're following along and filling this in if you didn't get to this one. Number 2, no 2 empires collapsed the same way, just as no 2 empires grew the same way. But in the end, all of them, what? Fell. Good. Number 3, there is much debate on how these empires fell, but we can organize the potential causes and decide if they were internal or external. And this is important because you have a question at the bottom that talks about this. So 4, internal causes were things that happened within the empire and caused it to splinter and fracture. So these are things that happened on the inside of the empire, within the borders of the empire. Examples would be the unfair taxes, tensions within social hierarchies, poor leadership, religious beliefs, or bad laws, right? Bad policies. Number 5, external causes were things that happened to an empire from outside forces. So things that other people were doing that negatively affected the empire or the dynasty. Examples include attacks, natural disasters, diseases, or extensive borders. So borders that went out a little bit too far and then people kind of came in. Number 6, most empires fell due to a combination of both internal and external problems. Number 7, you're describing what happened to the Han Dynasty. So you need 5 problems. Explain whether they were external or internal. So 1 was multiple emperors' death. There's no heir to the throne. That's an internal conflict. 2, corrupt officials, internal. 3, natural disasters, external. 4, peasant overthrow attempt, internal. It's supposed to say peasant, not pheasant. Number 5, attacked by neighboring tribes. That's external. You know, we don't have the pheasants that are attempting to overthrow the government here. 8, describe what happened to the Roman Empire. So that was the Han. Now we're talking about the Romans. 8 you need for this one, but you just need 6. Number 1, massive borders that needed protection and patrolling. That was an external problem. Roman citizens suffering poverty and disease. Internal. 3, Christianity. First bad, then good. Internal. 4, split of empire to east and west. Internal. 5, east and west become less and less alike. Internal. And then the Germanic tribes that are invading, which is external. So if you didn't get this, that's okay. This is what I was saying for your question of the day. Number 7 and number 8 are very helpful in that, because now we're going to discuss how are the two empires similar and different. So if you need time, go back and get this. You have access to this video, so you can do this at home over the weekend if you are very behind. Okay? Let's jump back to the agenda here. For your question of the day, you're comparing those different internal and external reasons. So what are the similar ones? List a few there, and then what are some of the different ones, okay? Nice job. Make sure you're turning in your question reflection notebook at the end of this class period. So your study guide, like I said, is posted. Let's go over your reflection. What date is your test on empires? Okay, we want to make sure everyone knows the date of this test. Okay, so if you have a planner, go ahead and write it down right now. Write down, it is May 11, Tuesday, May 11. Okay, and that is your class period for today. Make sure you have your reading guide answers. Go ahead and fill out and study and look over that study guide we posted on Google Classroom, and you can go ahead and do the Kahoot in preparation. And we want you to have a great weekend. So have a good weekend, guys, and we will see you on Monday.